This week on the Autocar show, Renault's segment-busting hatchback, the Kwid, takes on its closest rivals from Maruti Suzuki and Hyundai. Hormuz catches up with a superstar and his supercar. Then we bring you all the highlights and the winners from the Autocar Awards 2016.
The story of the modern car in India began with the Maruti Suzuki 800. Now, a lot of the younger generation may not even remember that car, but I do. And back then, when you owned one of those, it meant you had arrived. Now, 30 years later, this is its successor. Under the hood, the Alto 800 is closely related to the original. But apart from that, as expectations have changed, this car has changed a lot too.
Now, over time, expectations have changed. People want small cars, but they want them now for the convenience of it. And sure, they don't want them to be very pricey, but they don't want them to be cheap either in the way they feel. They want them to be affordable and something that they feel proud about. And that's where Hyundai changed the game with the Eon.
Then there is this, the Renault Kwid. An SUV, a crossover, well, it certainly looks the part, but at the end of the day, it is just a compact hatch. Now, what we have to find out is, does it have the substance to outdo the other two in this battle, which are great little compact hatches and from the biggest car manufacturers in India.
Can the Kwid better the hatchbacks from India's #1 and 2 car makers? Well, Kwid looks quite brash, but where it really matters, that's the engine department. It follows safely and sensibly in the footsteps of Maruti and Hyundai. Just like them, the Kwid uses a 3-cylinder engine with near 800 cc's of displacement. This comes mated to a 5-speed manual transmission. On its own, the performance of the feels quite adequate to keep pace with city traffic. On an open road, it feels at ease in the 90 to 100 km/h zone. But when driven back to back, it's a bit different.
Now, you always expect the best out of the newest, but as far as performance goes, the Kwid really isn't the best. In fact, it does have the stutter that the other 3 cylinders have, but it's more pronounced. It's really hesitant and jerky to drive in traffic, especially when you're ambling around. And even when you put your foot down to get a little bit more, there really is nothing there. You do have to work the gears to get a move on.
In terms of in-gear accelerations, the Kwid trails the Hyundai. But the Eon isn't the best here.
Now, the champ in terms of performance is the Alto 800. The light clutch is great for traffic, and that engine, its genetics might date back by 3 decades, but here and now, it just feels so easy to drive. I mean, you have responsiveness at low speed, so it's easy to drive there, and then when you put your foot down, it just keeps pulling in a nice, predictable fashion, which just makes it very easy to drive.
Just look at the numbers, whether it's while accelerating from a standing start or while accelerating in gear. The Alto is ahead of the competition. This is especially surprising considering that the Alto is the least powerful and the heaviest of the 3. The Kwid, meanwhile, is the lightest and nearly as powerful as the Eon. But it seems that Renault has tuned the engine and gearbox for best-in-class fuel efficiency, and the Kwid clearly is better in this department. And it's the Alto that comes in next, with the Eon trailing in third.
But there's one sensation that you just cannot escape when you sit inside the Alto, and that's just feeling like you sit at the bottom of the food chain, because you're really sitting that low. So when you're out on public roads and you have traffic going past you, especially if there's heavy traffic, you just feel like this really small fish in a pond full of whales.
And the cabin won't make you feel much better either. The design, although updated, isn't very appealing. Instead, the lasting impression is of a sense of sturdiness. While a music system and Bluetooth connectivity is offered, the most notable addition to the Alto's list of equipments is that of a driver airbag, a feature that is also available on Hyundai's Eon. The Eon though feels more spacious and a lot more impressive than the Alto.
The Eon came in and really changed the game, and it wasn't just in terms of the interior quality or the amount of features that it offered. It's also in terms of refinement. I mean, whether it's engine noise or the way the cabin is insulated, it is the most refined of the lot.
Meanwhile, the Kwid tries to wow you in other ways.
Now imagine this, a giant touchscreen display with
After 80 meters, keep left.
Bluetooth connectivity and navigation, as you can hear that. So that's in a car in this competition that costs about 50,000-60,000 bucks cheaper than the others.
While that is impressive, the Renault feels a bit lacking too. The fit and finish just doesn't feel as rich as on the Eon, and the all-black theme makes the cabin feel a bit dull. The outside mirrors are non-adjustable and look a bit tacky. Like the others, the Kwid also offers a driver airbag as an option. Sadly, in the back there are only static seat belts. But the Kwid is very spacious, and that should come as no surprise as it has the longest wheelbase. It is also the widest here, so sitting 3 abreast is the most comfy in the Kwid.
Now when it comes to the back seat, the Eon and the Kwid are closely matched when it comes to knee room, but the Kwid has a distinct advantage in terms of width. This just feels wider. Sitting 3 abreast will be easier here, and another thing is that you have a bigger window area here, so it feels more airy and you're sitting a bit higher. So all of it helps improve the experience for the passengers in the back seat. And that aside, the suspension just works better. Whether you're driving at slow speeds in the city, it'll absorb bumps better, or whether you're driving at higher speeds on the highway, it just feels more controlled, more composed, and hence more comfortable all round.
The Kwid also ekes out an advantage as an all-rounder with its high-speed manners.
Now, despite the light steering, it's the Kwid that offers up the best sense of security when you drive it. Especially as you go quicker, it's the one that feels most planted. Now, the light steering does have an advantage. You can maneuver in and out of traffic gaps quite easily. Turning and parking is easier too.
Then comes the boot. The Alto 800s is tiny. The Eons is better, but the one that takes the cake is the Kwid. For a one-car family, these small details make a huge difference. And then there's the looks. The Kwid, with its SUV-type styling, just doesn't seem like a car from this class. Although small details like the black ORVMs and the single wiper hint at its humble origins. The Eon is the tall boy, and it looks a bit overstyled. The Alto is clearly the most basic. Just think of it this way. Which one would you feel the least awkward in when driving up onto the porch of a 5-star hotel? And clearly you won't be breaking the bank to buy any one of these. But the Kwid is almost as affordable as the Alto while offering so much more, and ends up giving you the most value for money here.
Okay, so at the end of the day, I think the Alto 800 is this really solid and sensible hatchback that, does so many things right, but
Karthik, that's just it. It's just sensible. It does have the strength of the Maruti brand behind it, and it performs well, and it's fuel efficient, and
very reliable.
It's priced well, but it's just that.
That's just it. I think that's also its weakness. It's just too sensible, maybe.
And in this bunch, it really feels old school. I think that's why the Eon won our last battle. It just felt more modern in the way it looked, the way the interiors were, the quality of the interiors, the features that were offered. And not
it just
only that,
ended up becoming a package that you're willing to compromise on some fronts because it was better to live with.
But I think the Kwid has come and really stirred this pot up. It's shaken up the segment.
Yeah, it's certainly got a lot of the X factor going for it.
Well, definitely changed the way cars are going to look in this segment for a long time to come. It's no more just a compact hatch. And I think that's half the battle won for this car. It's got image, it's got presence.
And apart from that, it is very practical as well. I mean, you've got great cabin space, you've got great boot space, rides beautifully, and also feels very planted at higher speeds.
Exactly, so it gives you that sense of security. It does have its shortcomings too. I mean, the engine is not the best performing in this bunch, but I think it's adequate enough. It's something you learn to live with, and if it's city driving, I don't think you will miss much.
And build quality, like we've spoken, yes, it's not the best here.
I think sometimes the image makes you expect more, and when you get inside, you realize, hey, this is still just a compact hatchback. But I think the biggie really is.
I think that's a big factor.
Yeah, when you consider everything that's offered in this car at the price it comes with and the fuel efficiency it offers, I think those are the two big factors. And it's 60,000 rupees cheaper than the Eon when you compare it spec to spec. And that's a huge difference for a first-time car buyer. So I think really all things considered, it's a no-brainer. The Kwid is the winner.
After this break, we catch up with Sachin Tendulkar and his spanking new BMW i8. And we bring you the biggest winners from the Autocar Awards 2016.